Solar storm fears. Earth faces major issues after 40 SpaceX satellites have been wiped out. If you see them streaking through the sky, that's probably them. And the last solar storm that we had hitting us February 4th and 5th, we had a blackout in Russia. Now the solar storm, this one here coming at us today and tomorrow, the solar storm could cause havoc after 40 of SpaceX's Starlink satellites were wiped out, with warnings that major issues may lie ahead for us with our advanced technology. Elon Musk, SpaceX revealed it was in the process of losing up to 80%, that's 40 out of the 49, of the Starlink low Earth orbit LEO satellites launched just 5 days before. It comes after the satellites were significantly impacted by a geomagnetic storm on Friday. The company said a geomagnetic storm occurs when there is an efficient exchange of energy from solar wind into the space environment surrounding our Earth. That's the solar flare that came at us. Even the most minor storms can cause chaos when they come into contact with satellites, and this was only a C1 class flare. It was not a major flare. C1 is the weakest. Now, space weather physicist Tamitha Skov compared the event to a similar solar storm 3 decades ago. She wrote on Twitter, many satellites had major issues with the March 1989 solar storm. She says we call that event the standard candle of space weather. It calibrated the whole field towards operations and forecasting, she said. Now, while this was a minor storm, Mrs. Skov warned that with what all the large X-flare do to the Starlink constellations. The large X-flare, of course, will burn them all up. She says, I've been warning of this potential for years. This is not a surprise at all. It's why Starlink should increase their perigee above 600 kilometers. This problem will only worsen as solar cycle 25 continues to ramp up, and we're just starting that cycle now. The Starlink satellites were in a relatively low 130-mile high temporary orbit. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. U.S. Space Weather Center ranks solar storms scale of G1 minor to the least intense, all the way to G5 extreme. And this was a class G1. But even the weakest storms, like this one, the G1, threaten power grid fluctuations and have a minor impact on satellite operations. At the strongest end of the scale, all of that extra radiation can damage the satellites we use for communications and navigation. It can disrupt power grids that provide our electricity. The space weather said during storms, the currents in the ionosphere, as well as the energetic particles that precipitate into the ionosphere, add energy in the form of heat that can increase the density and distribution of density in the upper atmosphere, and this causes extra drag on satellites in low Earth orbit. That's exactly what happened. SpaceX said these storms cause the atmosphere to warm and atmospheric density at our low deployment altitudes to increase. And they said, in fact, on board, GPS suggests the escalation speed and severity of the storm caused atmospheric drag to increase up to 50% higher than during previous launches. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, says drag has a significant impact on spacecraft in low Earth orbit, LEO, generally defined as an orbit below an altitude of about 2,000 kilometers or 1,200 miles up. SpaceX confirmed in a statement that 40 of its 49 satellites will deorbit. That means it will be destroyed. It comes after the company launched 49 Starlink satellites via Falcon 9 at Kennedy Space Center, Florida, which cost it $15 million. But SpaceX assured that the deorbiting satellites pose zero collision risk with other satellites and by design demise upon re-entry, meaning no orbital debris and no satellite parts hit the ground. In other words, they will burn up in our Earth's atmosphere. This is by Jacob Paul on Express UK. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.